everyone, this is Mrs. Trigno back with page, I believe this is page 4 of the Chapter 5 test review number 1. Starting off with another word problem, problem number 12. Talking about wedding planning. Jim and Elena are planning a wedding. The reception hall charges a flat hall rental fee and additional charge per person for catering. So basically they have to pay a set amount just to use the facilities, and then they get to pay per person for the catering and the meals and all of that stuff. Okay, then it goes into some details about, Elena wants to invite this many people, Jim wants to invite this many people. The variables are a little tricky to pick out here. But again, I encourage you to look all the way down to the very last part of the question where it says what I'm trying to find. I'm determining the reception hall's flat rate and the caterer's charge per person. Okay, so my variables are the flat rate and the charge per person. So I want you to think about how that's going to work. We'll be paying the flat rate for the reception hall, plus we'll take the charge per person and multiply by the total number of people, and then that'll equal our total cost. So for example, if Elena wants to invite 185 people, she would have to pay the flat rate, plus she would have to pay 185 times that charge per person. Okay, that would be her total cost, the flat rate plus 185 per person. And she has figured out that that total is going to be $9,400. Okay. Jim is trying to be a little more frugal. He wants to get that cost down to $5,000. So he says, let's invite 75 people instead. Now he would still have to pay the flat rate, but this time he's only paying for 75 people. And we know his total cost is going to be $5,000. Okay, so those are my two equations. Those ones aren't quite as obvious to set up, but once you really think about what your variables are, hopefully it'll make sense to you. Okay, now I want to solve. And actually solving this one is really easy because those f values are almost set to cancel out. I am just going to keep my first equation just as it is. F plus 185p equals 9,400. And I'm going to take that second equation and change the sign on everything, which remember I'm allowed to do as long as I change it on everything. So that's going to give me a negative f, a negative 75p, and a negative 5,000. When I add those together, my flat rate cancels out. 185 minus 75 is 110. And 9,400 minus 5,000 is going to be 4,400. Divide by 110. And I end up with P equals, I believe that should be 40. Yes, I should double check that before I tell you the answer. Yep, 40. So P equals 40. I'm going to plug that back into either one of my equations. I'm just going to go with the top one. So I would say F plus 185 times 40, because I'm plugging 40 in for P, equals 9,400. Well, 185 times 40 is 7,400. Whoops, F plus 7,400, there goes that brain again, equals 9,400. And then I would just subtract 7,400 from each side, and you end up with F is equal to 2,000. So that means that this particular banquet hall charges $2,000 as a flat rate and then $40 per person for the catering. Okay, see, that wasn't so bad. Alright, let's take a look at number 13. This one is just asking you to solve, which means you can use substitution or elimination. some of you may be looking at this and thinking that substitution is going to work really well, and it wouldn't be too bad because I would just have to divide by 6. But I do know, just looking ahead, that when I divide by 6, I'm going to end up with 4 divided by 6, which is a messy decimal. So unless you want to work with fractions, this one might not be so great to do with substitution. I would probably use elimination here, but to use elimination, I'm going to need to move that 4x to the other side, because these ones don't match up right now. So if I add 4x to each side, and on this side I want to make sure I write this with the x value first, so that it goes in front of the 6y, I would have 4x plus 6y equals 10, lined up with, well, I guess I'll rewrite it up here so that they're lined up. So I have 4x plus 6y equals 10. I have 2x plus 3y equals 5. And to get something to cancel out, I would probably multiply that bottom equation by -2. That would get my x's to cancel out. So I'm going to get -4x minus 6y equals -10. So now basically, I guess I'll rewrite this top equation under here. Didn't really think about the best way to write this out for you. I'm looking at these two equations right now just to avoid some of that confusion. When I add these together, notice what's going to happen. My x's are gone, my y's are gone, my numbers are gone. Everything cancels out. If everything cancels out, what I'm really left with is 0 equals 0. And a lot of you are going to think that's no solution just because the variables canceled out. But remember, if you end up with an equation where both sides are equal, that's all, I'm sorry, not all real numbers. That is infinitely many solutions. These are the exact same line. These two lines lay right on top of one another. So I would say infinitely many solutions. And again, I told you you could abbreviate that IMS. I just wanted to write it out so you would know what it stood for. Okay, number 14, another one where we're writing an inequality. Okay, so again, let's use y equals mx plus b as our guide. Okay. My b value is right here at the center, so that's really a 0. You actually wouldn't have to write the 0, but I want you to know that I'm following the same steps as before. Now to find my slope, I'm going to pick any 2 points on my line. I would probably pick this center point and then maybe this point here. And to get from one to the other, I'm going to have to rise 1, so that's a positive 1. And I'm going to have to run 2 to the right, so that's a positive 2. So my slope is 1 over 2, or 1/2. So this will just be 1/2 x plus 0. The shading is above the line, so I want this to be greater than. And again, it's a dotted line, so I do not want to include the equal bar. So an easier way to write this, I guess, would be just y is greater than 1/2 x. That would be your final answer, but I would not penalize you if you included the 0. Okay. Now it says, does the coordinate 0, 0 satisfy the inequality? Justify your answer. Well, 0, 0 is right on the line, so it could go either way. But this is a dotted line, which means that the dotted line is not included as part of my solution set. So this would be a big fat no, because, you see this down there? It falls on a dotted line. And remember, dotted lines are not included in the solution. Okay. If I'd given you this exact same problem with a solid line drawn there, the answer would be yes. Okay, so just make sure to sort that out in your brain. Okay, on to page 5.